Hello, fellow humans. My name is Vlad Bunea, and this is Roast Growth News, our new program here at Economy for Life, where we discuss the most important news from last week with a focus on the crazy obsession with economic growth on a finite planet. Let us talk first about Canada, where I live. How can we not begin with the little video posted by our Prime Minister on Sunday, just when nobody was on YouTube?
We've embarked on an ambitious new mission to rebuild, rearm, and reinvest in the Canadian Armed Forces, with the single largest increase in defense investment in generations. As a result, recruitment to serve our country is already up 13%. This is the first time since the fall of the Berlin Wall that Canada will be spending what our allies expect and what we need for our defense. And we're just getting started. Our defense strategy will catalyze $500 billion in investment in Canada over the next decade. Our plan for Canada is gaining momentum, and it will work. But we are not going to fix all our problems tomorrow. The world, as I said earlier, is more dangerous and divided. The U.S. has fundamentally changed its approach to trade, raising its tariffs to levels last seen during the Great Depression. Many of our former strengths, based on our close ties to America, have become our weaknesses that we must correct. Workers in our industries most affected by U.S. tariffs, in autos, in steel, in lumber, are under threat. Businesses are holding back investments, restrained by the pall of uncertainty that's hanging over all of us. The U.S. has changed, and we must respond.
On Friday, Carney announced a new Canada Investment Summit that will invite investors, CEOs, and business leaders to Toronto this fall with the goal of pulling in $1 trillion in investment over the next 5 years to advance nation-building projects. More military spending, more investments. What is this all more for? Why do we need this growth? Military spending is because the Russians and the Chinese do their own military spending because they think we do more military spending, and we do more military spending because we think they do. Wait, what is happening here? What is this nation building anyway? I thought we all had a great nation. Of course, we are not all number one like America's United States. Maybe Canada is a strong number two nation, and we're proud of it, eh? Stephen Poloz explains the IMF's warning about the risk of entering a global recession and how Canada could be affected. He said growth in Canada is only at about 1%, and the economy is still digesting US President Donald Trump's tariff regime. The author of the article in CTV News, Mr. Spencer Van Dyke, reminds us that the Liberals, meanwhile, have pointed to other recent data from the IMF forecasting that Canada will be the second fastest growing economy in the G7 by next year. In an interview with CTV Question Period last week, Secretary of State Wayne Long also cited the data and said the government is focused on growing the economy. Hold on, there's a lot to unpack and roast here. First of all, why is 1% growth not good enough? Why must Canada be the second fastest growing economy in the G7? Again, what is this growth good for? And what is growing? The military, the prices of houses, my unemployment benefits? Oh no, we don't know because we are never ever told by politicians or mainstream media what is behind all that growth. Here's when everybody has their own assumptions. Something growth is more prosperity. Something growth is more freedom to travel. Something growth is more health. Some even think growth is moving humans to Mars. We don't know. Nobody's telling us. Statistics Canada has published their weekly review. Total manufacturing sales rose 3.6% to $71.2 billion in February, following a 3.1% decline in January. Unfilled orders reached a record high, rising 2.3% to $117 billion in February, driven primarily by higher unfilled orders for aerospace products and parts. Wealth gap increases as the wealthiest benefit most from strong equity market gains. The wealthiest household, top 20% of the wealth, accounted for almost two-thirds, 65%, of Canada's total net worth at the end of 2025, averaging $3.5 million per household. And record year for refined petroleum. Production of finished petroleum products rose 1.4% from the previous record set in 2024 to 117 million cubic meters in 2025. In 2025, consumption of the three major transportation fuels reached new highs: finished motor gasoline plus 2.7%, distillate fuel oil plus 2.2%, and I got bored. Oh my god, so much growth, so many good numbers, more stuff is being sold. Great! I bought two pairs of pants on sale at Costco last week. Wealthiest Canadians average 3.5 million in wealth, which went up from last year. We produced and consumed even more fossil fuels. Fantastic. Remind me, why is the planet burning with so much goodness? Why are species going extinct? Why do we have fires in California and flooding everywhere where there's a nasty river? So much growth, and we still don't know why we do it. Wait, there's more. A capitalist conservative website called The Hub published a piece called How Canada's Economy is Choking from Federal Regulations. 7 graphs. A recent survey by the Business Council of Canada found that nearly half of CEOs identify the domestic regulatory burden as the single most important factor influencing their investment decisions, higher than CUSMA uncertainty, topping the list in every survey wave since 2023. Okay, got that? Let's see a graph. World Bank's regulatory framework ranking OECD countries 2025. OECD is basically a short way of saying insanely rich countries. Whereas Canada, all the way at the bottom between Costa Rica and Sweden. A very restrictive place. Not good. Another graph. Canada ranking on the OECD's product market regulation. Canada is in the 26th place. Not a good place. More graphs. Canada's score and ranking on OECD's Index of Professional Regulation. Architects, 33rd place. Civil engineers, 30th place. Lawyers, 5th place. Accountants, 28th place. Real estate agents, yuck, 33rd place. The domestic data tells the same story. Statistics Canada documented a 37% rise in federal regulatory restrictions between 2006 and 2021, a surge directly associated with a 1.7 percentage point decline in GDP growth, alongside drops in business investment, dynamism, productivity, and employment. Over 300,000 regulations, 37% growth since 2006. Wait, what? Did I hear growth? Moving on. The consequences show up in what doesn't get built. The average lead time for mining projects has nearly tripled over 3 decades, from roughly 6 years in the 1990s to 17.8 years today. Okay, so mining takes longer because regulation just wants to make sure that mining is, I don't know, safe at the bare minimum, or that children are not used as, I don't know, workers. Moving on. External pressure from tariff threats, capital flight, and weak economic performance has made red tape an economic imperative that transcends partnership. Okay, Mr. Charles Lamam, what are you saying without saying? Are you saying what we think you are saying? What are your assumptions? You see, the devil is always in the hidden assumptions. Apparently, capitalists want less regulations so they can do more production for everyone's benefit, right? That's the underlying assumption in all this data. The government must reduce all regulations so capitalists can just do quicker mining and build faster whatever they want to build. What's wrong with all that? The incentives, that's what's wrong. The assumptions, that's what's wrong. Before anything else, capitalists must make a profit before they serve consumers. Capitalists will never do mining or produce whatever if they cannot make a profit. They need to grow and scale up their business to make a profit. They will never stop growing. There's no finish line in the design of capitalism. The problem with these incentives and assumptions is that they have very, very bad side effects. So bad that we have to stop the goddamn growth machine and rethink all these assumptions. I'm not done yet. The Royal Bank of Canada, a big kahuna in the Canadian banking industry, they have a growth project. Capital gains, how Canada can unlock the $1.8 trillion in needs for growth. A $1.8 trillion investment opportunity over the next 10 years could make Canada the G7's growth leader. Oil and gas, 705 billion. Electricity, 670 billion. Agriculture and food processing, 205 billion. Metals and minerals, 200 billion. Defense, 19 billion. Space, 12 billion. Wait, what was that? Space like Mars kind of space? Between 2015 and 2024, more than $1 trillion of investment exited Canada, the largest capital exodus in Canadian history. For every dollar invested, $2 exited. The opportunity is immense. If Canada can capitalize on this moment, it could lead the G7 in economic growth and industrial dynamism. Look, they have a graph too. Business investment and real GDP per capita reach historic low. That's not good. The dot line thingy is very low and it needs to be high. All of this would follow a 10-year capital recession. We don't like recessions. Over the past decade, Canada's net outflow on investment exceeded $1 trillion, dollars, the most significant capital exodus in modern Canadian history. For every dollar invested in Canada from abroad, $2 exited. Those damn dollars, why don't they just stay here? They keep moving. Okay, move on. The question is not whether Canada can grow, but how. A very good question. How does Canada grow? Canada's oil and gas industry sits at a strategic crossroads. Canadian producers appear poised for growth. The International Energy Agency forecasts that under current policy, global oil and natural gas demand will continue to increase through 2050. RBC has a trend growth scenario: constrained oil growth, rapid liquefied natural gas growth, 430 billion. Wait, I thought we need to eliminate all fossil fuels, including natural gas. Because I don't know, the planet is burning. There's also a steep change scenario. Energy superpower, $705 billion. This superpower thingy includes two new export pipelines and more oil production. Of course, give me my oil. I'm thirsty. What else? Oh, yes, metals and minerals. Maintain industry's long term growth rate. Shoot me in the foot if the growth rate shrinks. Global demand for metals set to rise over the next 25 years. Not just Canada wants growth. A. Defense capital required 10 billion. Yep, we covered that. Agriculture and food processing 205 billion needed because we are hungry. Capital formation in agriculture slowly trending up because we need capital formation in agriculture, not quality food formation. Got that? And for the busy people, we have all of that in one nifty table titled A New Capital Framework for Canada, where different actors share different parts of the pie of capital. Whoa, this segment was a big one. Corporations like to put out reports and bury assumptions deep. With this fancy growth project, it's even more difficult to unbox the hidden assumptions. Basically, they say we need mountains of investment money to make Canada a growth leader. Let me get this straight. We need more money to grow faster than everybody else. Why? What's the assumption here? Growth for what? I'll keep saying that. Growth for what? What's the end game here? What is this growth giving us? Is it growth for everybody? Is it the same amount of growth for everybody? Is growth about money? Are we all going to be crazy rich by the same amount? Mind you, all these questions are being asked on a planet that is burning, on a planet where Israel is committing genocide. Yeah, I said it. Where millions are being displaced because of wars, floods, and droughts. Again, growth for who? Next, we have an opinion piece published by the Institute for Research on Public Policy by Mr. Ki Wu. The title is Canada's Comfort Trap is Stalling Long Term Economic Growth. Mr. Wu complains about disappointing productivity growth. He writes, this is what makes the country's growth problem harder to solve. Canada remains wealthy, stable, and highly livable. Its financial system is sound, its institutions are strong, it has abundant natural resources, human capital, and privileged access to the world's largest market. These are real strengths, but they have also made it easier to postpone the necessary structural reform. The country has drifted into what might be called the comfort trap, where the economy creates a level of affluence strong enough to hide overall weak performance and stable enough to delay the reforms needed to restore long term growth. The solution? Create a true national market, raise business investment. And hear this, Canada's challenge is not simply that growth has slowed, it is that the country has settled into a lower growth equilibrium characterized by three reinforcing features: weak competitive pressure, weak innovation conversion, and weak capital deepening. So, where are the problems according to Mr. Wu? When resource prices are supportive, they can soften the warning signals that would otherwise come from weak business investment and slow productivity growth. Another problem is proximity to the United States that has created some complacency for Canadian businesses that don't have to compete internationally. So the Canadian government must do internal market integration and competition reform because the goal should be to move more innovations into widespread business use. Capital allocation should be treated as a growth issue. Of course, guys, come on, that's obvious. Canada should improve the environment for growth capital and productive investment. Need I say more? Even a child knows that. And I'll stop here because I'm bored. What do we learn from this? That we got too comfortable and that slowed down economic growth. Now I'm confused. Are we not working and doing all the capitalism so we can have a good time, chill in comfort? If we are already comfortable, does that not mean we already achieved our goals? Mr. Wu, dude, let us chill in comfort. Next, check this out. The International Monetary Fund is telling us we are doing quite well. Sometimes I find Canadians don't actually realize how good they have it, said IMF's Western Hemisphere department head. Wait, what? Across the group of seven, Canada's probably in the strongest position fiscally. Nigel Chalk, that's his name, director of IMF's Western Hemisphere department, said in an interview in Washington. Chalk also praised some of Carney's changes to Canada's tax framework. including expanding write offs for capital expenditures, calling it quite competitive internationally, especially at the corporate level. Okay, so we are actually doing great. The IMF also sees Canada's economy growing 1.5% in 2026, higher than the 1.1% estimate in a Bloomberg survey of economists. That's the second fastest pace of growth among advanced countries after the United States. So, are we growing faster after all? If you are confused as I am, you are not alone. Capitalists do not seem to, coordinate between themselves on a coherent message to deliver a good quality conspiracy. Why is that? Because capitalists compete with each other for the same pie. All of them want a bigger slice of the pie and they pull into their direction. One guy says we need less regulation because that's what he needs. Another guy says we are doing great, just come and invest here. Capitalists tell different lies to cover their hidden incentives and assumptions. Our job here is to navigate the lies because there's one truth, which is that the design of capitalism is the same for everybody. Back to our Prime Minister Mark Carney for a second. This is what he published on Friday. Prime Minister Carney announces first ever Canada Investment Summit. We are building a stronger economy with an ambitious plan to catalyze $1 trillion in total investment in Canada over the next 5 years. The first ever Canada Investment Summit will take place from September 14 to 15 this year in Toronto, Ontario. That means more growth for our businesses, more high paying career opportunities, and a stronger, more independent Canadian economy for all of us. Not you if you're not in Canada. $1 trillion in new capital will create growth, good jobs, and long term prosperity for Canadians, says Maninder Sidhu, Minister of International Trade. And that's enough for this. By now, you have the gist. Growth must be unlocked. Investors are summoned in Canada to bring their money here. What's the sales pitch? Why would they do that? Because the Canadian government is promising they will make money here. Nobody would come to invest in Canada if they cannot make a profit. To make a profit, the entire economy must expand because you cannot keep milking money from the same old cow. That's the curse of economic growth. The cow tends to get old and die, you know. Can I share with you one more? Please, just one more. This is from Candace Lang, President and CEO of the Canadian Chamber of Commerce. She writes, a strong private sector is key to Canada's economic growth strategy. What Canadians may not recognize is that the only real economic engine is a thriving private sector. Say no more and take my investment money. Consider that for every $1 of GDP, the federal government collects about 16 cents in revenue, which means that when businesses make more money and contribute more to our GDP, government funding automatically grows too. Growth is even good for the government. Geez, who would have thought of that? Okay, blah, 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 blah. And finally, the worker shortage in these clusters, as categorized by Signal 49 Research, formally cost us around $2.6 billion in 2024. Okay, abundant natural resources from lumber to liquid natural gas, addressing the challenges slowing Canada's economic growth strategy must ask the question, what does Canada's changing demography mean for economic growth, competitiveness, and long term prosperity? What's the hidden message here? That private business is the only sector that can do this amazing, much needed growth. But there are more hidden assumptions which are not shared with us. Some of these assumptions Businesses must be undemocratic hierarchies where decisions are made at the top. Salaries are not decided by workers themselves, but by executives. What is produced and how is produced is not decided by workers, but by executives. There's no limit to personal wealth. There's no limit to many cheap resources that are taken from the global south. There's no limit to how much cheap labor is used for this so called economic growth. There's no limit to how much waste we dump into nature to create this growth. There's no limit to how many species go extinct so humans can do economic growth. There's no limit to how many fossil fuels are extracted and burned. All these news about economic growth keep us in the dark. They never tell us the assumptions. They do not tell us about the limits. The assumption is that there are no limits. That's capitalism for you. Enjoy if you can. That was it, folks. The first episode of Roast Growth News. If you liked it, give us a like, a subscribe to please the almighty algorithm. There's so much growth we have to roast. Can we just have peace? Can we just chill and stop this growth nonsense? We have enough already for everyone. Increase the peace.